Okay, welcome everyone. I am the Assistant Director of the International Program at MoMA. I'm really happy to see so many faces here tonight. I am going to hand it over to Christian Rademeyer, who will be our moderator. He is the Harvey S. Shipley Miller Associate Curator of Drawings and Prints. And I just wanted to briefly mention that Post Presents is a series of conversations that grows out of Post, which is a website devoted to the history and legacy of modernism in Central and Eastern Europe, Asia, and Latin America, respectively. And we publish all kinds of scholarly articles, but we also it's kind of like a repository for all kinds of archives and really interesting materials that we hope that people like yourselves will go and explore and develop further. So just to give you a little, in case you haven't seen the site, a bit of a teaser of what the kinds of things you can find there. We began the site with a deep dive into the Sugetsu Art Center, which was a hub of experimentation in Tokyo. Um, and I should mention that theme was introduced by Doryun Chong, one of our speakers tonight, during his MoMA days. Also, more recently, there is an interview with Cildo Moreira, the famous Brazilian artist. He's talking about his insertions into his insertions, and also more recently, and Christian was involved with this, there's 800 objects or scanned objects from Milan Knižak's archive, the famous Prague performance artist and director of Fluxus East. But I'm gonna hand it over to Christian. I just wanna thank a few people, the CMAP Mellon Fellows, especially Zana Gilbert, who conceptualized tonight's theme, but also Magda Moskalevitz, Ksenia Nuril, and Yucheli. I don't know if they're over here. Also in my department, the director, Jay Levinson, Patricia Buffa, and our great new intern, Lucy Holmes. And thank you, Christian.
Thank you so much, Sarah, for the introduction. It gives me great pleasure to welcome you and our wonderful group of speakers tonight here at MoMA. Thank you for coming out. I know it's always a busy night in New York, so we really appreciate it. This is my first post-present, so forgive me if I'm too long or wordy or too short and not wordy enough in my introductions. And it's the second public forum of post-presents, which allows us to make public some of the questions and discussions and research that we've been engaged with here at the museum for the past 4 years through an initiative called CMAP. Sarah has already been talking about that a little bit. As many of you may know and have heard many times, CMAP focuses on art in Asia, Eastern Europe, and Latin America, with a particular eye for the ways in which modernisms have been rethought from the 1950s onwards. And particularly, we're interested in how those modernisms, how those particular histories can be brought into the museum, into a broader context of display, of collection, of research, of writing, and of building a network with other institutions and colleagues and artists and archives and historians and audiences around the world. Most importantly, while the impact of CMAP on MoMA's collection, our curatorial discussions, the way in which we conceptualize everything, how we talk and think and display our collections, our institutional philosophy, while that impact is profound, most of the discussions that take place here happen internally and in smaller groups. And so we don't have many forums and occasions to share that and invite you in. And this is one of them, as is the website post.moma.org. it's a little long, but do look it up. And our first public post presents, which was entitled Translating Feminism, is recorded, as is tonight's event, and is completely viewable on our website in various segments. And I watched the introduction twice today, just to kind of familiarize myself with it. So it's a worthy viewing. It's a great archive to have. And hopefully lures you into the Post website and makes you discover many, many different aspects of the very rich content that we've published there. Tonight's forum addresses maybe one of the most fundamental and monumental questions that all museums are concerned with when they're trying to engage with a more inclusive, global, and connected historical narrative. In recent years, the shift of terminology from a singular modernity to modernities, and conferences and exhibitions with titles such as Other Modernisms and Cosmopolitan Modernisms, and the recent rehang of the permanent collection of the Centre Pompidou entitled Multiple Modernisms, all point to a broader desire to understand the art of the past century in a more comprehensive context. Regional significance, local urgencies, contextual complexities often appear in tension, if not in outright conflict, with the needs of global relevance, the despotism of chronological primacy, and the established vocabulary and signifiers of the inventions, transgressions, and taboos of the avant-garde. In the introduction to her catalog for the Pompidou rehang, curator Catherine Grenier writes of a crisis of consensus, of linearity, of progression, of uniformity in modernism, which was shared with slight differences, as she claims, by nearly all Western museums, which includes us. We're sort of the, you know, maybe as the chief culprit, maybe we're sort of as canonical as can get. So, you know, what better place to start than here to rethink that? To address this crisis, in the collection policies of a museum, Grenier posits, we need to engage not only with the question of what to show and how to show it, but further with the direction of the future collecting activities. And I think at least one panelist can talk a lot about the direction of future collecting activities. But the question how to adequately engage with a more comprehensive presentation of modernities does not only concern Western institutions and their lacunae of art by other modernisms. Regions previously considered on the margins of art historical modernity are faced with the challenge how to simultaneously establish and critique a canonical framework that allows for regional and national histories to be understood in a broader international context. I hope we can address some of these questions today. I'm sure you have many other questions to bring to it, and I will end pretty much here so to allow our speakers some time and to hopefully allow for enough room and time for a spirited debate and conversation with you in the audience. Let me briefly introduce our speakers tonight. You have in the handout full biographies, so I will make it very brief. Edith Sasvári is an art historian and since 2010 has been the director of the Lajos Kaszák Museum in Budapest. In which role she has been instrumental in reimagining the history of the Hungarian avant-garde in local as well as international contexts. We, with our Eastern European CMAP group, visited Edith last year, and I'm very pleased to welcome her to MoMA. Doryun Chong, I think, is no stranger to any of you, as he's the inaugural chief curator of M+ in Hong Kong, a museum for visual culture of the 20th and 21st centuries from a Hong Kong Chinese perspective. But before M+, Doryun was an associate curator in the Department of Painting and Sculpture here, and the former head of the CMAP Group East Asia, so he can probably speak on this much better than I do. And last but not least, Alex Alberro, who's the Virginia Wright Professor of Art History at Barnard College and Columbia University. And I think besides his longstanding expertise in conceptual art and institutional critique, he's currently at work on a book about the reconfigured spectator in mid-20th century Latin American art, which is forthcoming. We'll start with Edith. Please take it away. Thank you very much.